All right. And I would like to welcome everyone to the Office of Equity and Inclusion's Courageous Conversation this week. We've got Denise Scruggs. She'll be talking about ageism, not just about older adults. And just to give you a little context about Ms. Scruggs, she's the director of the Beard Center on Aging at the University of Lynchburg, who recently made 2,200 masks for older adults in the Lynchburg area. So congrats on that. She's worked in gerontology for over 30 years and has worked in higher ed for 24 years, as well as being the director of the Beard Center. She's a professional trainer for the National Council for Certified Dementia Practitioners. Basically, she trains professionals and organizations in the United States to better work with people who have dementia. And she has lots of different experiences in her career, college residence life, hospital social worker, counseling youth in correctional settings. And yeah, I'm really excited to hear what she has to say, what this panel has to say about ageism. So welcome Denise. Thank you.
Thank you, and it's great to be here, you guys. And it's great to have the opportunity to talk about ageism. We don't always get that opportunity, and unfortunately, a lot of times there's not a lot of interest in hearing about ageism because people feel it doesn't apply to them, so they're not as interested. But I'm excited to say that I have with me three people today that are going to help out. I have Ali Zuba. She's the executive director of the Adult Care Center of Central Virginia. She's also a 2017 graduate of the Master of Nonprofit Leadership program here at the University of Lynchburg. She's going to share a little bit of her experience of being an older student on campus, as well as other parts of, as we talk about other aspects of ageism, she's going to share that. She also has worked in various settings with older adults and has been a national and a state leader in adult daycare and other gerontology programs and so on. So we're very glad to have Ali with it. Ali, will you just say hello so everybody knows who you are?
Ooh, I was not prepared to unmute. Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me on this discussion. I think it's very timely, and I'm excited about this. So thank you very much.
Yep, and it's always great to have you with us, Ali. Really is. So, and with us also today is Amanda Loving. She's a senior intern from Health Promotions. She's going to share a little bit of a story of herself as being perceived younger than she is and how that worked there. And Amanda, I'm going to get you to get on the mic and tell us a little bit about your major and what you're doing.
Hi, my major is health promotions, which I have yet decided what I want to do with it after I graduate. It's nice to meet all of you.
And I appreciate that. And Amanda's working with us. We're doing an Aging in Place Expo, and she's also helping us coordinate that big event, which we will hold in the community next year. So doing a fabulous job there. I also have with us today Jalen Williams. He's a senior intern in biology. And Jalen, I hope I got that correct with the biology. He's also going to share a story, some of his experiences, if I can get that out. I apologize, and talk about how ageism has impacted him. And Jalen, I'm going to get you on if you don't mind. Say anything you'd like to say about yourself that I haven't shared.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Jalen. I'm really excited to talk to you guys about my experiences. Denise has been working really hard on this presentation, so I'm interested to see how this conversation is going to go.
And Jalen's been doing a lot for us on inequities against older adults and minorities, older adults, and doing a great job for us trying to increase the resources that we have for those populations in our Aging and Caregiving Resource Center here on the university campus. So thank you, Jalen. We appreciate that. I'm just going to start and tell you a little bit about what our goals are today, give you kind of a brief overview of ageism. Then we want to give everybody a chance to talk. We're going to have Ali and Jalen and Amanda share their stories, but also we hope to have time that everybody else who has comments or whatnot will have an opportunity to share also. So feel free to put information in the chat box for us too. We'll be watching for that also. But we're going to talk about ageism and reverse ageism and what they mean. We're going to offer examples of where they're occurring and how they impact us. We're going to talk about the scope of it and who is really affected by ageism and why it even matters that we look at it. And then we're going to end on talking about how we all can combat ageism in the work that we do, or as a student coming out into the job market, what you need to know about possibly being discriminated against based on your age and coming out into the job market. So that reverse ageism is unfortunately alive and well also for you guys too. So let's just start by defining ageism and reverse ageism. Well, the actual term ageism was coined in 1969 by Robert Butler, who was a gerontologist, and it means prejudice from one group to another group. And at that point, when he first coined that phrase, he didn't look at it as only toward older adults. He felt it could go in a lot of different ways. And it can occur any time in our life course. It can occur in middle age, as being young, or it can be in later in life. But he did later go on in 1975 and narrow his definition to be stereotyping and discrimination against older adults specifically, even though we know that it's not just toward older adults. And that's where we got the term reverse ageism, to include what we see are happening toward younger adults on the other end of the spectrum. So it's going both ways. So that's where we came up with the title, that it's not just one way. It can go many different ways with that. And it's looking at the impact. Sometimes it's positive. We might treat people differently in a positive way because we assume stereotypes that are not true, or it might, in most cases that we see, negatively impact that person or what's going on in their lives. But again, those two terms, ageism and reverse ageism, it's important to kind of start off with. And we know that it stems from assuming people are all alike. All older people are alike, thus all younger people are alike, therefore, and then we make assumptions based on that all or every. And we all know, right? We learned it fairly early in our lives. There's no such thing as everyone and all, right? And unfortunately, we don't recognize that in some ways. I think it gets easier for us as we start trying to figure out where we are in relation to other people and where resources are and different things. And then also what we hear from other people, from the media, all that impacts where we come from at that point. But we typically assume that people are generally alike in a group, and that adds to that prejudice that we often see. And what's amazing is that it's really for all of us who fear aging. If you're one of those persons, and we know that's one of the things that contributes to ageism, is people fear their future self being older. And that's one of the only ageisms, that we fear the future as much as it is living in the present. For example, our race, our nationality, our sex, some of those things. Again, it's the present. It's not our future self that we're talking about at that point. The other thing that I'd like to say is that there are three elements. When we look at this ageism, there's three things that contribute to that. And one is having that prejudicial attitude toward an older person or toward old age or the aging process. And that's the first thing that we see, that prejudicial attitude, sort of like young people are inexperienced or not competent, and older people are frail, weak, and forgetful. That might be prejudicial attitudes that we might assume about people at each end of that spectrum. But adding to that, we start discriminating based on those beliefs. And then we develop policies and procedures that support what we think with that. We're currently hearing some things, and COVID has brought a lot to the forefront, and we'll talk about that, both in what we're seeing with voting and voting practices, but also what we looked at as far as handling how we provide medical care to people of different age groups during COVID. So if nothing else, I feel like for us who are working in the field of gerontology, it created a wealth of opportunity for us to share these things right now. So ageism starts at any age, usually young age, and it's more socially acceptable than a lot of the others that we see there too. And the way COVID is affected, I don't know if you recall whether or not you were, or if you even heard, some countries give any ventilator accessibility to anybody over the age of 65. And the actual ex-health minister in the Ukraine said anybody over 65 were corpses, and that they were going to use their ventilators for people who were living, suggesting that older people weren't living. We saw it from other countries also. We even heard it here when one of the lieutenant governors basically said, let older people die, let older people go to work. They are willing to sacrifice their lives for COVID, so that for the American economy, and kind of generalizing that all older people are ready to be disposable if needed to be for the country. But we're seeing those kind of things come to light again, and that helped us better understand where people were coming from, right, with that. And I dare say any of us who are older probably had a thought of, am I willing to be disposable? And some of us who had parents that we love and hold near and dear probably questioned whether we felt they should be disposable. And some of you guys who had older parents or grandparents may have thought that, as I said that, but well, maybe I don't want that for my grandparents with that, just because they're a certain age, they don't get treated. But we were really not sure how to handle all that, right? There was no rule book when we were in the midst of COVID as to how to make those decisions, and doctors had to make many agonizing decisions along that way. And then came the voting issues. How do we handle absentee ballots? In many states, and it's automatic. If you're 65 and older, you can get that mailed to you. You don't even have to request one. But what about the person's in college or the person that's overseas? You have to basically request those. Is that considered ageism, that we make one age group go through the hoops and the other one doesn't? There's arguments for both sides. So it's things like that we're re-looking at now, and again that has come forth from this. And but I did want to just kind of give you that overview and to tell you a little bit about how it's manifested. What happens, to change that. Well, for ageism, we feel that we don't stay again in a certain age, so we're moving through that whole process. It's a transition, other than say our race or nationality. So we may go in and out of an acceptable age group, and then that's going to affect us along the way. The fear of death and the death anxiety. Gerontophobia is the fear of death and growing older. And we see a lot of people that feel that way, and we feel that's also contributing to this. The negative stereotypes of aging associated with loss and frailty make an impact on people, whether they're going to fight it to the end or embrace their what happens through the aging process and just move on. All that can be impacted by our fear of death, our fear of growing old, our self-image of who we are. Do I mind a few wrinkles, or do I want a wrinkle-free face, that I'm going to be willing to do 5 or 6 surgeries or whatever I need to have to keep that face with no wrinkles on it, with that. But also the social perceptions that we see on TV. Some of you who are older may remember, and you may still see some of it. There's commercials, I've fallen and I can't get up. For years, that's the only commercial we saw, right, Allie? And that was all we saw for 10, 20 years. And now we're showing older people having sex, because we have them in bathtubs talking about medications that help people stay sexually active. We're seeing a different older person there, and active and engaged in life, not just waiting to die or needing help. And we're seeing it just even in TV, even the number of shows with older people. Media is just really changing. So I encourage all of you, pay attention to what you watch on TV. Pay attention to the next movie you see. See what you see. How many older people are there? How are we showing older people? Or how are we showing young people? Like irresponsible, bunch of young, irresponsible people that you can't trust, that all they're out is for themselves and partying. We know that's not true, but is that how we're portraying our younger people also? Again, it goes both ways with that. But we know the media, including TV, social media, Facebook, cards, jokes that you hear about people, all that contribute to that and impact that and can be very harmful to us. And we know that if we internalize that, that can affect our age. You know, we can die 7.5 years earlier if we go into aging and hate it and worry about it and are concerned, and we accept those stereotypes of ageism that ageism provide. We tend to die almost 8 years earlier than other people that say, I'm going after it. Even if I go kicking and fighting, I'm going after it my way and I'm going to keep rolling. And it's not about my number and the age. It's about, how I see it and I'm moving forward. So we can harm people's health by treating them certain ways. Even in the medical field, I've experienced it a number of times that we've had family members not get treatment that had cancer and it was kept from us and then told that they've lived their lives. It's, time to let them go. Well, you waited 6 months into cancer, you let it get so far, and we kept asking what's going on, and you would never tell us. And in essence, they were dying. And, we're seeing decisions made in those ways not to treat older people. And I've seen it over and over and over in the type of treatment that they get. And also, Allie just put in here, dementia is a normal part of aging. No, it's not. So what happens, they don't treat it. And now you've got people going further along in the dementia and having a very poor quality of life at end of life. And then we're talking, is the term older, Robert asked, culturally appropriate? Well, Robert, I have to say, we don't know what to call ourselves when we get older. Even our agencies don't know. We agonize over and over. What do you call us? Do you go for seniors? Do you go for elders? Do you go for boomer? We don't even know. There's no agreement. And Allie, what do you say? Yeah. Yeah. Amanda,
I'm not a boomer. I'm a Gen Xer.
That's right.
But even to put everybody, I'm sorry, Amanda, because to put all of us into that kind of generational pull is a little bit discriminatory too. And Amanda, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, in terms of that, it's very subjective. You should just ask on an individual basis what they would prefer, because there's no guarantee you're going to get a culturally appropriate. There's no across the board, this is correct.
Yeah, I see it almost like how people view gender pronouns. It changes based on who you talk to. You just have to get people's opinion and perspective, because you never know how they feel about it.
That's right. And that makes, when we're trying to prepare services, and what do we call our service? You have to be careful not to be offensive, but there is no agreement, even in healthcare and aging services. What do we call an older person? Call ourselves people. Elsa, great. That's so true. Call ourselves people.
Yes. And it's so interesting that you say that, because I was in a discussion with someone earlier and we were discussing something that happened in 1996. And I said, well, the classification that we had at that time was stated like this, which is totally changed and totally different now. But it's hopeful, because it really has changed compared to how we referred some things in long-term care specific in 1996, when we had somebody who was in a medical emergency and how that was handled. But that's really interesting that topic came around today. So.
Oh, exactly. Elsa, did you want to say anything about because you're exactly right. Call ourselves people. What our problem is, how do you get services out to older adults? How do you know we're for you if we don't know how to put it out? And that's where we're grappling every single day on what to do.
I think we should just call people. I think we just throw the whole thing out, because, and if you need service, then you need a service, then whatever age it is, you get it and apply for it or ask for it, and just throw all that stuff out. I come from an Italian background, and number one, I have a temper, and number two, La Familia, we're all family, right? And it goes up and down the generations, right? So I don't care about age. I get tired of people bracketing people out when they're older. They get bracketed out of stuff because they are not in the same plateau or level as another group, and that annoys the heck out of me. So I just look people, oh, aren't you thinking about retirement? No, I have 6 more. I tell them when I'm going to retire. I'll just give 6 more years, 2027. If my work is crummy, then let me go and I'll leave. But if I can still do good work, then I'm leaving in 2027. And don't give me this phased retirement stuff. I'm just going to work straight through. And I love to work. So I just tell everybody, I'm just straight about it. I'm not putting up with that stuff.
I agree. That's a great point there, Elsa. And again, because we stereotype people, we feel that you got that pressure to retire. That's what I'm hearing. You're sometimes feeling that. I feel the same. I just turned 62 and I feel that pressure, when are you getting out? When are you getting out? Well, I have to decide that. I don't know. I still plan on working until I die, and whatever that may be.
If it's interesting, just keep working.
I hear you.
Well, it's interesting. With the concept of the blue zones, which looked at where are people living the longest, but living very well the longest. The first place was found in Italy with predominantly male in that population. And but the second place was found in Japan with predominantly female, and their average age of this group of 9 that had spent their whole lives together was around 101, I think, was their average age at that point. Mm-hmm. But the cool thing was retirement is not in that vocabulary. They have their ikigai, which is their purpose in life. Their purpose in life doesn't change. So one man said his ikigai is to provide for his family. So he is going to be fishing every day to make sure that he provides for his family at 98 years old. The purpose doesn't change. It may grow and mutate or, evolve and that kind of transitioning, that wonderful flexible fiber of life. But the ikigai is where it's at, not age compartmentalization.
Sure. And I see here Susan Nagy also mentioned, that you were seeing that with your grandmother. And again, it's that compartmentalization. And sometimes people feel that older people need to move on because we're taking away the jobs of the younger people. And that creates the angst between generations. And we see that in the workforce too. So that's one of the things that we work at and work against with that. And let me mention some other ways that we are seeing, a big part of ageism is we don't even recognize that we're doing it or we're expressing it. For example, birthday parties where we make everything gloom and doom when you turn 50 or 60 or 70. It's the anti-aging products and all saying, it's not good to age. You have to fight it tooth and nail. Well, and if you want to, that's each person's business, but to feel that you have to, or you're not acceptable, and then sexuality, you got the young man that is sexually active as the stud and the old man is the pervert. And yet they have the same sexual needs throughout the age. It doesn't matter what their age is. It's comparing ourselves to younger adults. For example, you're looking good for your age. Well, am I looking good or not? Does it matter that I'm 60 or 50 or 40? I mean, I just want to look good. I don't want to look 50 and good in that. And also what we see is people feeling that we don't act our age. If we do, like I love to sit on the floor cross-legged, almost like I'm doing yoga, even though I'm not a yoga person. And, but at the same time, another person says, what are you going to do? I can't get off the floor. We laugh about it, but really that's a sign of ageism that we're saying you shouldn't be able to do that. You should not be doing that. You're too old to be doing that on the floor. And, that's another thing that we see, not acting your age or senior moments. That's the big one. And Allie, you suggested a little bit earlier, we don't talk at 20 when we forget something and say that's a senior moment, right? But you hit 40 and on, now we talk about our senior moments and the fact that we can't forget is being old. And so it's how we do that, or even the patronizing language. We drove through a McDonald's the other day and my husband was ordering and he went through and she said, here, sweetie, here you go. Well, I'm like, what? And, she was 20 years old calling my husband sweetie and he's 70 and, that kind of thing. And it's just, she was trying to be nice, but at the same time, that's patronizing. And we call that elder speak when we work with people with dementia and nursing homes. And it is a term of endearment, Robert. I agree with you there. And, we laughed about it afterwards, but if, say, for example, working with somebody with dementia that we say that to, that could cause all kind of behavioral problems in the person with dementia because they don't feel right maybe about being called that. So we just have to be careful with that, that and that. And like Elsa said, senior moments could be for all people. It could be after having, like I had a brain aneurysm. I have brain fog. Like you say, it could be about physical condition. It could be everything, not just age. So it goes on and on. Computer literacy, people feeling that older people won't know how to use a computer, and some don't, and some really do well. And I could go on and on and on, and I'm not. I'm going to turn it over and let Allie talk a little bit about healthcare and higher education. But let me say one more thing about reverse ageism, Allie, before I do. I don't want to forget to say this because we have a few students here with us. It affects your job advancement. It affects maybe being how you're treated, talked down to, or ignored. Being paid less for the same job somebody who's 20 years old, older than you are, is getting paid, even though you both have the same skill sets, or maybe you do better at the job than they do, but because they're older, they get more pay. And it's letting you go. And these jobs we're hearing now with COVID, a lot of people are being laid off, and they're laying off younger people, saying, well, you don't have those financial obligations of a family member you're taking care of, so we're going to let you go because you don't have to worry. We don't have, as much to worry about. Well, if you're losing your job, it doesn't matter if you're 20 or you're 40 or you're 60. We all have our things that are affecting us. With that said, I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to turn it over to Allie.
Hey, thanks, you guys. Okay, so I wanted to talk about Denise had said, about wrinkles. Do we accept the wrinkles or do we just go on with them? So in an adult day program in my previous life, I heard one of the activity leaders talking to a group of folks, and they said, ladies, how do we stay younger? Now, granted, this was probably about 15 years ago. So we were talking about Pond's cold cream and stuff like that. And a man in the back, or a lady, the activity leader said, well, ladies, what do we do about these wrinkles? And a man who was sitting in the back of the room goes, just get fat, ladies, stretches them right out, and everybody loves it. And they just kept going. And I was like, wow, that was totally different. It was just a very different concept. It was very cute.
And Allison, before you move to the next thing, let's give Jalen and Amanda, both who have been treated differently because of their looks, and treated with their based on age and looks. So I'm going to ask Jalen to go first and Amanda just to share quickly your story, and then just back to you, Allie, for the rest.
Sure.
Okay. So my first story, I started working for the first time when I was 15 years old. My 15th birthday, 3 days later, I got my work permit. Within 4 weeks after that, I had my first job. And it was a job as a cashier and a courtesy clerk at a grocery store chain called Safeway. I'm from Baltimore. I don't know if you guys have heard of those before, but yeah, that's where I was working. And at the time I was working, most 15-year-olds don't really work, especially in my generation. That's not the norm, but I was working because I had to, not because I wanted to. I built a lot of skills that I loved doing it. I found that I actually loved working, but I was doing what I had to do. And I asked my manager if it was possible for me to be able to get more hours or to receive training in other areas. I asked her that 3 months in. Her first response was that I had to wait about 6 months and then I can do it, because she said she wanted to make sure I had enough front-end training. I said, okay. I then waited the 6 months and went back to her, and she said that I couldn't be trained in any other department solely due to my age. And I said, okay. And I said, is that some sort of rule, or is that a bylaw or something that I need to follow? Because I have no problem following it, but I need to get these hours from somewhere. And she said yes. So me being myself, I followed up on what she was saying, and I asked another supervisor, I was like, is this the case? Is this how it's supposed to be? And they informed me that that was not the case. So me being myself, I went to the store manager and I asked him, was it possible for me to get some extra training in other areas, and what was it that I can do to make myself more marketable? He was more than happy to have me trained in other different places. So I actually ended up going back to my manager and asking her, why was it that she told me that? And her response was, usually kids who get jobs so young, like they're not really responsible. They slack off, they don't show up. And I said, okay, like I understand that, and that's all fine and dandy. But the thing is that I'm asking you for these opportunities. I'm always on time. I do what you ask me to do. There's no reason for you not to give me an opportunity in advance solely because you think that I'm too young.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Thank you for standing up for that. That's awesome. And you had another story you wanted to say real quickly?
Sure. So this one is actually more with my peers when I was younger. I actually skipped third grade. I was kind of a smart egg, and I'm 6'5", 250 pounds, and I've always been tall like my entire life. But I skipped the third grade, moved on to the fourth, and all of the kids thought that I was their age, but I wasn't. And I kind of carried myself different. I was shy, I was really smart, and I like to just do work and mind my business. And when they found out that I was younger than them, but I wasn't their age, they started treating me differently and they started picking on me and stuff. And I'm like, we're all the same age. There's no reason for this. And that was actually my first major brush up with ageism, even though I didn't really understand or know the concept yet. And those are my stories. When I experienced them, they made me feel, I didn't really understand how they made me feel because I was so young. I couldn't really put a name to what it was or a name to the feeling. I just knew that I'm the same as everybody else. We all come here for the same purpose. I shouldn't be treated any differently just because I'm younger than you are.
And thank you for sharing that. I know that's not easy. And, and that just shows, again, it starts young, really early when we start getting excluded. All right, Amanda, I'm going to give you a chance, and then I'm going to turn it over to Allie.
So the first time I experienced ageism was when my parents went to take me and my brother scuba diving, which is basically where there's oxygen tanks on a raft at the top, and you have a tube feeding you oxygen down below, and you can go about 25 feet down. I was 8 years old and maybe weighed 90 pounds soaking wet. So they took one look at me and they said, no, your daughter can't do this. And my mom's like, at least let her show you how she can swim. Because I had been on the swim team since I was 4 years old. Like, I knew every single stroke. I knew how to dive. I knew all that stuff. So they're like, okay. So they took me to a pool to swim. And after seeing it, they're like, okay, she could do this. But I was so mad because I was like, you're telling me that I can't do this when I know how to swim probably better than you do.
I get that. So again, based on your looks and your size, and you said since then you still have trouble, right?
Oh, yeah. Another time when I was 15, I was refereeing soccer, and I was the head ref in one game. And this coach pretty much would not stop yelling at me for everything. And he basically was treating me like I didn't know anything. I about carted him off the field. And at the end of it, the parents were like, good job. And I'm like, that was your coach, wasn't it? What?
So he was treating you differently because you were younger and you're doing what you were doing. But thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. Allie, I'm going to turn it over to you then.
Okay. All right. Jalen, I did want to say I'm 5'1" and almost 2. And in my younger days, I was more in Amanda's size range, and I was automatically assumed to be younger. And people would automatically look to the taller person in the group. So it's amazing how height is associated with age, and which Amanda experienced too. So I wanted to go back this week, over the past 2 weeks. Our center has been doing interviews for a position that we have open. And I was in a manager's group discussing some other things, but I had said, I wish that we could explain to people that to be able to get through a first round to a second round, it would be nice for them to not in the interview or start the interview saying, no, I really don't know what your company does, especially in this day and age. But then to end the interview going, well, based on, can you go ahead and tell me based on my skill sets where I would fall within your salary range? Would I be at the low or the high end? And when I said that, someone else in the group asked me if that was a younger person who asked it. And I said, age has absolutely nothing to do with this. This is based on this person's, how they decided to proceed through. But what I really wanted to tell that person is that no, it was actually that person's age that was the issue. And I just thought, what, the age doesn't have anything to do with it. We don't ask someone's age. We don't, that's not what they do. We have, I have a wonderful intern who I would love to have this job. It's just, unfortunately, their skill sets aren't quite where they have to be for our regulation. And that person is, I don't know if we want to say younger or older, but that person is a younger person, but they do so well. It's not about the age. It's how do you fit within that team? And that was such a frustrating moment. And I realized, golly, that just slapped me in the face of how bad this is. And I thought, if that person is going to be hiring people, that's an issue. And they're not, thank goodness, in their company. Someone else does that. But I wanted to talk a little bit about higher ed. And I'm sorry, my little mic just fell off. So I hope that wasn't too bad. I wanted to talk a little bit about higher ed. When I came to University of Lynchburg, it was still Lynchburg College. It was, the transition was just starting, or the discussion of it was more publicly. But one of the interesting things, I came in about 20 years after I had graduated from undergrad, and I had taken some classes along the way for my position that I had. So that was interesting. So I wasn't totally new, and thank goodness I took them through UVA. So at least I understood some of the online concept. When I graduated with my undergrad, computers were just starting to be used in school, and we were all excited because there were 20 fonts to choose from. That was the best thing ever. I mean, we could all of a sudden write cursive that was gorgeous. And so, that was a really neat thing, but they certainly didn't travel. I was a music major. We had them in the music building. We had them in the science building. So they weren't going all the way across campus. This is before cell phones. So when I came to University of Lynchburg, for the graduate program, it was a bit of a shock. It was it wasn't necessarily a culture shock, but it was gosh, I don't even know how to say it, an electronic culture shock, I guess, because it was understanding how Moodle works. I've never heard of a Moodle. So how in the world do we do that? So it was a very different thing. And who named that thing Moodle? But how does that work within my day-to-day framework of getting everything done that I needed to do? I came from a notebook pen generation, and it was interesting because some of the folks who were we were the first cohort for nonprofit leadership, which was super cool. But in some of those folks, we struggled between using a laptop and writing things down, because we knew we remember better when we write them, but it's so much easier to be able to type it in and go. And so we struggled. We were back and forth with that a lot. And it was really cool because one chick in the class who was also working on her doctorate at the same time, because she's crazy, she was just typing away. She was just going to town. Nothing was on pen and paper at that point for her. She had completely transitioned into that particular time frame. I still struggle. I still paper, pen, and electronic. It just kind of goes back and forth. But one of the things that was difficult was to understand that new vernacular. And I think that from my perspective, at least I've been told I'm a flexible person. I'm told I've been adjustable to certain things, and I have tried different things. So you have to be able to change. But understanding that vernacular was a huge struggle. And finding relative vocabulary to help with that adjustment was difficult. I almost didn't even make it to the first class. I'm so glad I did, because Dr. Jones was teaching, and he's a hoot. So that was fantastic. But I think that there's an elementary school near my house. That elementary school has a couple of parks and fields attached to it. And it has a humongous playground. It's a fantastic playground, but it also has walking trails and everything. That elementary school has become such a community center for that area. And I think at University of Lynchburg, not as an elementary school, but as a central area for a variety of people trying to accomplish some of the same goals of learning more, of being able to expand our horizons. And I hope that because of this discussion today, that we can look at how ageism has impacted how different levels of students are approached, understanding ahead of time what kind of struggles they're going to have to adjust so that we can get those suckers out of the way and help that person. Because we all, as if we are all successful, then we are all successful and our world is a better place. So it's kind of cool that I see that University of Lynchburg has that potential to be that common, wonderful community area. Because it is. Anytime I'd go on campus and, you got people out there playing field hockey at like 11:30 at night. I am such a morning person. I couldn't, oh my gosh, I don't know how you guys do it. That's so awesome. And I thoroughly loved it, but I didn't feel necessarily my age that was appropriate to go sit down and watch, because they're going to go, what is that old woman up there doing watching us play? But yet it was kind of cool, and I wanted to get involved in that. So it's finding that bridge, and it's making sure that that we have this open communication to say, we know that these are going to be some of the areas that this person needs help. Where do they park? How do they do that? Is this going to be too far away for some folks? That's so cool. Thank you. How do we manage some of the hip and knee issues? How do we manage those things so that we can get those folks in, and then pair it up with a fantastic person who is already in, maybe for their undergrad, who can help with all the vernacular transitions. I am lucky. Dr. Jones said, think how brave you have to be 70 something years old or 60 something, whatever you consider to be, too old to use an iPad. But think of how brave you have to be to turn around and look at a younger person and say, can you help me understand this? But how fantastic that young person is to go, heck yeah, I'll make sure that you got it, and you're going to be in the clear, and it's all good. So I think University of Lynchburg has that potential. I was lucky. We had such a great cohort, and we did have that kind of help. So that was a really cool thing.
And Allie, can I make a few comments too with that? I mean,
sure.
And I think we're moving in some good directions here too. But even the need for financial support, there's assumption that people are out on their own, they have the money. Well, when you've got family to take care of, and you've got loans you're already paying off and all the other stuff, and mortgages to pay, you don't. So even that financial aid for a non-traditional student can make a difference in people being able to come. And also the time that we offer activities and classes, or the way, or possibly childcare. I heard some great stories of faculty right now today that are allowing or taking care of children in the classrooms, letting people bring their child, and the child's over in the corner or whatnot, and quietly sitting while the family members in the class with them, and that faculty are working with their older students that way. And that's great to see. But, and encouraging that intergenerational component, which I see us doing. But, looking at counseling services and other types of services, are we giving them at a time that people who are older, who are paying also prices to be on campus and student services, do they have access for these type of resources when they come in the evening? Things like that, I think, as we look at. But I just wanted to say that, because I think these are all things too, as we look at increasing older students on campus, we need to look at all these things because a person's need is different being a traditional student than it may be different being a 40-year-old person returning back, or even a 60 or 70-year-old wanting to just come back and get another degree.
Because it's really cool.
Career at 60. Yeah.
Yeah, because the as we transition through life, it's amazing how certain things you really want to dive into and learn. How much more fun learning gets as you're going through life. One thing that you had said, Denise, I'm so sorry. It's kind of gone away from me. Shoot. I speak for, I'm a speaker with the Alzheimer's Association, and I get to come talk to Colby's class. And one of the things that we were talking about in one of her classes, it's an overview of dementias. So we're talking about different types of dementias, how they manifest, the age that they come in. The youngest is below 20 worldwide that's been diagnosed. That's insane. And it's getting younger and younger. And Eliza, you had brought up that sports with concussions, head injuries called brain fog. Well, you're 50% more likely to develop dementia when you have a head injury that results in loss of consciousness. So that's a really staggering statistic. However, with that, we were talking about social equity and how your social equity is peaking around 22 years old. And I'm looking at this fantastic classroom of folks, and I'm thinking there is no way. And I asked, I said, when you're 24, do you think that you're less important than when you're 22? Because that cannot be. You have 2 more years of really cool experiences to go. And so how in the world can we say that someone's social equity totally tops out at 22 when everything is really cool and getting started and you're really getting to rock and roll with everything. So I think that when we have this perception of this is driven by the media. It's driven by all kinds of things. It starts right here. It starts in this conversation of valuing every single person for everything that they have gone through and everything that they've got coming. And I think that this is where it starts. It's very much a grassroots effort to change that culture. That's all I have, Denise. I'll be quiet.
Oh, thank you. And you guys, I tell you what, this time just flies. There's so much we could say. But, again, when we look at it, ageism does affect all of us, right? It's not just the older or the younger, but it's all of us. We're all impacted by it one way or another, and how a family member might be treated or we might be treated ourselves. I wanted to give a few tips to some of our young students that are here. Is how to minimize reverse ageism when you're going out into the job market. Just a few tips. We're being judged, right? We're judged when we walk in a room, what we look like, what we're wearing, how we're acting, what our experiences are. And they're deciding, yes, you're going to meet the need that I'm looking to have filled or not. A few thoughts that they have offered in a number of places is dress professionally, of course, and help yourself appear older than you are. Is that not unfortunate that we have to appear to look older than we are? But that's one of the recommendations that employment professionals give us, is dress professionally, so that again that we appear older, more mature. Diversify your skill set. Well, people have such great opportunities, all of us do, on the college and university campuses to try so many new things, to develop new skills, to be involved in sports. When we're writing up our resumes, to be sure not just to say I was on the sports team, but write what all you got out of it. I've learned how to be a team member, how to plan for whatever, or all the skill sets that you got out of being a team member in that sport. Not just that you were a team member, period, because there's so much more than that. And all the leadership that comes out of doing that gives you such great opportunities, throughout your time on the team as a leader, but also afterwards, using that same skills and translating that into the professional setting, but also building tech skills for all of us. We know that's high on employers. What employers are looking for right now. So we want to look at that, and being creative, to look outside the box, to be able to solve problems. And also, one of the stereotypes for young people today, unfortunately, and against the millennials, is that they're selfish. And we know that's not true. I see it every day here on this campus, how much students do, young and older students, as well as faculty and staff. I don't see that selfishness that is the prejudice against many young people right now. So make sure that you note on resumes what you do and the things that you're involved in outside of the classroom, because that's what they're looking at to help go against that prejudice of that people have about young people being selfish and not interested in others. And with that said, I'm just to say a few quick last things, and then we'll open it up for the last few minutes with questions. And again, I appreciate a lot of you guys have put a lot of great information out here as we've gone. But awareness and education is the key to fighting ageism, and being alert to what's going on that's promoting ageism and not contributing to it. But the language that we use makes a big difference now. We see it with xenophobia and what's going on with the Asian Americans here in our country now. How words are used and creating fear and changing how people are being treated. Well, we see that in with older adults also. Maybe not to the extent we're now seeing in our country with the other, but we see this going on an everyday basis. But talk about it. This conversation is great to have. I know we've been excited. I know Allie and I, working in the field of gerontology, we're very excited to be able to have that opportunity today to even have the chance to talk about it. We don't often get that chance, you guys. We've been on this campus for years. I've been here for 12 years. We do a lot for the campus and the community, but we see people every day that don't even know who we are. Yet we're out there. We try to be out there, but they don't open our emails. They don't pay attention to what we do because they're not interested in aging. Yet we serve people, both young people and faculty and staff and all types of people in a lot of situations. But do research. One of the things we're seeing with ageism, there's not much research out there to give us evidence-based ways to respond. So anytime you have the opportunity to promote or do research on ageism, we appreciate that too. And then also participating in and offering those intergenerational opportunities. We all need those opportunities because ageism is serious. It's no different than it is to have racism or sexism. It's just as serious. We just don't talk about it. We don't talk about the real seriousness of it. But we have today hit some of the pieces. I mean, we have a lot more we could have said that we didn't even hit. We hit about the itty bitty tip of the iceberg here today. But we need to raise that awareness with everyone. And we have to remember that age is just a number. It's not who we are. It's not who we are. It's not who another person is just because the number on the resume, or we don't look at and I've seen employers do this. Look at they graduated in 1977, so that means they're too old. Or they just graduated this year because they graduated on this date, and therefore, they're too young. And that they don't even look at an application because they've already looked at and assessed their age. So we have to be careful with that. But getting to know who we are and not what we are as far as a number on us. But with that said, I am going to just throw it out. Any other questions or thought? I see we got some good comments from Elza. Thank you, Elza, that you have a coffee shop on campus. We need to talk more about it. Think about our universe, how old the universe is. That's exactly right, Elza, too. We don't. We're very young blood. We're very young when you look at where we are in regards to our universe. Any other thoughts or questions, or any of you guys, Allison, Amanda, or Jalen, or any of you that has a comment on what we've talked about today? I think we have 6 minutes left.
I have nothing more than it's great to meet all of you. So thank you for having me.
I was going to say I liked Allison's idea about the two age groups having a group like meeting together. Like, I think that would be like a really good, because I grew up, my mother worked with like older adults with disabilities. Like, I grew up like around, so I grew up socialized around them. And the thing is, like, they're normal people. Like, they're just normal people with little experience. And I feel like we as humans, like, the way we perceive people and deal with people who we consider other is all in our heads. So if we gave younger adults and younger people an opportunity to socialize with older adults, it would help break that stigma and help us realize that we're literally all the same. It's going to happen to all of us.
And get rid of that stigma, like you said, that disconnect between generations.
Yes.
Amanda, you got about a minute. Go ahead.
So because age changes so much, there isn't really mile markers like we had in the past, because everybody did the same thing. Because there's so many different paths now for people to take, you can't define somebody's experience by their age anymore. It's not possible. They've experienced either a lot more than you or a lot less. There's no way to quantify that.
That's right. And thank you for sharing that. That's exactly right. Well, let me just ask, Robert mentioned, definitely, I love this thought. Let's talk about how we can further work together to heighten awareness around ageism. Any of you have any comments or thoughts, especially some of you who are here with us that have not had an opportunity to talk yet? Or anybody else that has talked that would like to? Trying to make sure everybody had an equal opportunity to chat. Or Robert, do you have any comment you'd like to make?
And this has been amazing. Denise, when you came and spoke to my diversity and inclusion class last fall, I think it was, you were on my radar to definitely further the conversation. So, I thank Amanda, Jalen, and Allison for your stories and your experiences. And Denise, thank you for your passion around ageism and just everything that you do at the university. But we have to continue this conversation. As the president says, we need to put these words into action. So whatever programs we can do on campus and off campus to keep this subject on the minds of people, let's do it.
Sounds great to me, and I think so. And I would like to invite anybody that's interested to stop by the Beard Center on Aging. We're in 304 Hopwood, and we're always looking to involving as many people as we can. And it's great to see some of you guys here. And I see we have faculty, staff, and students. And thank you. And Allison, Jalen, and Amanda, thank you too for working with me on this presentation today.
And then
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. I want to thank Mr. Dalton, right, for introducing you all and being our host. So thank you all.